Like most videos on my side channel, it's brought to you by Gamer Subs, a delicious energy formula with no sugar in it. Get 10% off everything on their website with the code Thorin, Thorin. Maybe you'd like to try a flavour like Pom Pom Punch. It's a delicious, well-balanced, pomegranate-based flavour. I love it. Not my favourite, but certainly one that's in the outer rotation. Now, I'm going to do a tier list here, like I did for movie directors, about one of my favourite musical acts of all time, which is King Crimson, the legendary supergroup of amazing musicians, and obviously within the progressive rock, prog rock genre, although they certainly go into prog metal, experimental, all sorts of that type. And it's been around for a long, long time. This is a group that was started in 1968. They've been active as recently as 2021. They've done something like 13 albums. We're going to do a tier list of them all. I thought before we get into that, I'll actually talk about some things in the group, because one of the most interesting things about King Crimson, the reason that they've been able to last all those years, is it's basically one guy, Robert Fripp, who, by the way, himself has been a session musician for, like, I think people like David Bowie, all sorts of famous people he's played on their tracks, fucking Peter Gabriel, all sorts of amazing artists. And then he would get other amazing, technically gifted music players, Bill Bruford on the drums, Tony Levin on the fucking bass. He would get all these amazing musicians, and in different eras, he would form versions of King Crimson. And then he would do all these amazing albums, and they would do all these live tours, and then they'd go away on hiatus and work on other projects and do other things, and it would sort of go into a sleeper mode at the time, where it was just dormant, waiting to be resurrected again. Then, if some of those other people, he fell out with them, or they were off doing other projects, he'd get someone else in who was another amazing drummer, another amazing guitarist, another amazing singer, even at certain points in time. And so the amount of people they had in their group is really, really incredible. I mean, you go back and look, and Robert Fripp himself is a very talented guitarist who has a very unusual style and can do all sorts of like orchestral and classical styles of guitar as well. He's also really famous for doing soundscapes that he would do like as the sort of interludes at these gigs. They had people like some of the classic ones like Giles. Greg Lake was obviously like a legendary singer early on. He was really, really dope. If you don't know, he was only in Emerson, Lake and Palmer, very famous prog rock group. They had Ian MacDonald, another legendary figure, multi-instrumentalist. I think he's a guy who could play like the flute and shit like that as well. They had Giles himself. You keep going down. They had Bill Bruford, one of the best drummers of all time, amazing in any rhythm section. They had John Wetton, another guy who was a singer. I think he's sadly now dead. He was just I think he was even a bass player. Yes, he was really good bass player. Another classic one. In this group, he's amazing. He has some baller solo albums, by the way, if you love King Crimson. Another legend. You keep going down. They had Adrian Bellew, who was the singer in like the latter era, who had his own style and his own sort of guitar style, brought a new dimension, a poppier sort of rocky element to the group. You had Tony Levin, one of my actual heroes, who not only is one of the best bass players of all time and has played on so many people's tracks you won't even know about. I think maybe even he did. I think he might have even done like the bass line like fucking Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel, by the way. He also plays that like Chapman stick, which is like a type of a bass that has something meant like 8 or 10 strings on or whatever. You had people like, this is another drummer they had that was really baller. You had Trey Gunn, who took over when Tony Levin wouldn't be there, and he was doing his own sort of like multi-string bass. We're talking some Dream Theater shit here, boys. In fact, if anything, they probably worship this group. If you don't know, other prog rock legends like Stephen Wilson of Porcupine Tree. He's even actually helped remaster some of the King Crimson albums. He's such a massive fan of them. This guy was a baller in the latter era, in the sort of projects era and the last couple of albums. Really talented musician. You had all these other people as well that you might know if you just know jazz and prog music. They had so many people in this group. They're such an amazing fucking group. And we're going to look at some of their albums as we go through and do the tier list. So if we go to the tier list, they've got their 13 albums. I think they have 3, 6, 9, 12. Yes, 13 albums. And we're going to rank them all. And if anyone knows me, if you haven't seen a tier list, I only rank really harshly and cynically. Because I hate people who are like, I'm a big Nirvana fan. What are their best albums? All 4 of their main albums. Oh, yeah, I guess Kurt Cobain was a good lyricist, and, you know, Chris Novoselic had, like, some good bass. No, the Dave Grohl was the best drummer, too, and actually, Kurt Cobain was a genius with the guitar. Again, that's boring. It's fucking boring. You haven't even critically thought. You're just worshipping them like a religion. So, I don't worship anyone like a religion, except, you know, God and fucking the spirit. So, we're going to actually harshly, spoiler, not many, they've done 13 albums over all those decades. Only a few are going to get into S tier. And by the way, for King Crimson, they haven't done anything that's going in D tier. Because we're talking main albums. They have loads of EPs, by the way, and live EPs. They have amazing live EPs, by the way. But I'm not going to put any of these albums into D, because nothing they ever did was a D. That's why I'm leading with this is the first group I'm actually going to do. So when I go and look at all their albums, I'm immediately thinking, why don't we just go in chronological order? And I can sort of tell you a story as we do it. So the first album they did was called In the Court of the Crimson King. It came out in 1969, even includes King Crimson in the title. And this is one that even if you've never heard, you almost certainly have heard the main title track. Because the title track, oh, sorry, not the title track. You've heard this song, 21st Century Schizoid Man. 21st Century Schizoid Man. Dun, dun. The reason why I know you've heard it is because, one, it was literally sampled in, like, I think the song Power or something by Kanye West. It's also been in a bazillion movies as, like, the credits scene or even sometimes the opening track. It's just one of the all-time prog tracks, and it was basically the first track on the first album they released. So it's one of the reasons they're one of those legendary groups of all time. And look at that fucking writing list, by the way. It's an insanely good song. Spoiler, this one right out of the gate, we're going to talk about it now, straight into S tier. Their first album straight to the S tier. This could be the finest prog rock album ever released. Like, this goes head to head with anything Pink Floyd ever made. You go down the list of prog rock groups, anything. It goes head to head. Dream Theater, all of them. All those fucking ones from like Spain, every other country. Because it's not just 21st Century Schizoid Man. Then you have some, like, one of the great things about this era is they'll go from like hard prog rock and metal elements even seeping in there before metal existed. And then you'll go to these beautiful, like, I Talk to the Wind and Epitaph, which are like softer, and they're willing to like go all over and have flutes and quieter elements, and they'll bring it down and really explore a track. The only track I actually don't think is that good on this album is probably Moonchild. It's just a bit whatever. And then it ends with an unbelievable track too. This track here, The Court of the Crimson King, this might be my favourite King Crimson album track. Because this section here, like the Return of the Fire Witch, is because this is one of those ones that's like 2 or 3 tracks almost built into one in terms of sections of it or stanzas or whatever the musical term would be. It's unbelievable. It's really one of the best tracks ever made. It's something really special. So that goes straight in at number 1. Boom. Then we'll go to their next album, which would be In the Wake of Poseidon, just a year later. If you're wondering, wow, there's a lot of fucking work done in it. Look at this. Between 69 and 74, you've released 7 albums. Because in the 60s and 70s, musicians didn't get what they got in the 90s, or if they're pop musicians in the 2000s, which is you sell so much and it's also cynically marketed. It's about having a few years downtime and doing some singles, then coming back and doing the big world tour. Back then, you had to release albums and tour all the time and just gig. Because one, you're just musicians. It's your life. It's your craft. In the same way a blacksmith gets up and works there, doesn't he? Just take fucking 2 years off and sit in a mansion like Prince would, or Tool taking 10 years off or whatever, because they're so rich and they don't have to put some out. No, you just keep working. And so they're grinding out all-time classics, just like the Led Zeppelins, the Moody Blues, Rush, all those great bands were back then. So the next album, 1970s, In the Wake of Poseidon, a lot of people don't talk about this album as much as the first one. It's quite similar, I have to say, as it even says here in the sort of flavour text of this Wikipedia article. It's a great companion piece to the first one. It's even quite similar. It has the big booming epic tracks that go all over the place. Then it has the softer ones and the gentle ones. Then it has some that are a little bit more experimental that you might not vibe with as much. You know what? I'm actually just going to say, this might not be like my second best. We'll redo the orders at the end. But this is going S tier too. This is going straight into the S tier. It's actually a slept-on album. People love to talk about In the Court of the Kings and Crim, Red, what else? Discipline, obviously. These are the ones everyone else goes crazy for. They forget this album. In the Wake of Poseidon is a fantastic album. A really special piece. Pictures of a City. Oh, one of the best songs they've ever done. Like, this is a track where it's even funky. It gets funky with the fucking bass. There's a track called Cat Food, which is quite silly. It's actually about what you'd imagine cat food, believe it or not. Not particularly good. But I think overall, yeah, great album. Really fucking great album. Then we're going to come to 1970, same year, Lizard. Now, this is one where already you're putting out a bit too much here, mate. You're doing too much, as the kids say. Because this isn't one of my favourite albums. In fact, it's one of my least favourite albums. There are moments on it I certainly do like Like, I'll tell you what, the opening track makes you think, holy fuck, they did it again. They're going to have 3 in a row, S-tier classics. Because Circus is one of their best tracks. It's a really great track. But after that, the rest sort of whatever. There's moments in indoor games and Happy Family. I don't particularly like Lizard. It's a really long track, and I'm not really sure what they were going. They were trying to get a bit experimental. It's prog rock, remember? They're coming hot on the wake of an album they already put out the same year. Just didn't do it for me. I've got to say, nothing's getting D, but I will put this, a beautiful art, by the way, old-fashioned style that we had in England there. I'm going to put that C. I do think it's one of my least favourite albums of theirs, and they have so much great work and so many other albums that all the tracks stand up that this has to go down there. Even though certainly Circus is an outlier, it's a very good track. Then we are going to come to 1971's Islands. Another album I think is, I wouldn't even say a mixed bag, I think it's just a flawed album. What's interesting about this album is this. It's quite jazzy, but I don't think it has a lot of classic tracks or even classic tracks on it. I don't hate it. This one's a lot more listenable, I actually think, than Lizard. And a lot of it is trying to do a lot more softer things and things with chimes and flutes and trying to really slow it down and get emotional and be poetic. But it just doesn't hit as hard as the others do. It doesn't have that hard prog. It doesn't have that fucking prog metal aspect you get in the 90s and 2000s albums. So I've got to say Islands, also going to go C. I think I'm also going to put it down there. By the way, spoiler, I don't think anything else is going C. So everything else is either S, A, or B. So let's get into this. Then you have Larks, Tongues in Aspic, where what they did was they had these 2 tracks that are both instrumentals. One is 13 minutes something long. This is all prog, remember? And the other one is 7 minutes something long. And they have sort of a connective aspect where they're the same refrains and reprises and you're returning to certain melodies, etc. This is a pretty good fucking album, I've got to say. Like, it's not a great album. It's not one of their best, but it's a good album. For prog, it's certainly a good album. I do like the 2 title tracks. The problem is it only has 2 really good tracks. And listen, one of them is exceptional. I played it as the opening to this stream. Easy Money is one of the best King Crimson tracks and prog tracks ever. Funny thing is, I think people forget about this track because Pink Floyd have their own famous track called Money. So people are going to think you're talking about that. It's a fucking all-time great track. Easy Money. Woo. Look it up. Exiles is a pretty fucking cool track too. But aside from that, it only really hits the heights on Easy Money for me. The others more, you're getting more into what happens with King Crimson in the late 90s and 2000s. They become incredibly technical. That's more what these 2 are like for me. So I have to say, I think this is going B tier. Which remember, because this is one of my favourite groups, is still worth listening to. C, you could maybe ignore. B, except maybe the tracks I've mentioned, you've got to listen to B. A is going to be very, very good, and S tier is godlike. That's how it works. Then we are going to come to Starless and Bible Black. Now, one thing, just to point this out, because people get this confused all the time, the album afterwards, Red, had one of the best tracks ever that you'll have heard also in movies, etc., called Starless, which features the lyric Starless and Bible Black. But the actual album doesn't feature that. It has a track called Starless and Bible Black, but it's very different. And this is the era, by the way, where you've also changed the people in the group. Oh, no, it's after this album, actually. It's after this album, I think. Yes, I think it's the next album. I do think this album is really good. It's not S tier for me, but it is a very good album. Like the opener, Great Deceiver, is a really, really special prog track. It's certainly, again, a contender for best King Crimson track. If you made like a top 10 greatest hits, it would have to be on there. It's one of the ones that had whole live tours where that's the main track people want to hear. In general, the very high quality album Lament's a good track. The Night Watch is, again, if I have to pick my favourite, this would be a contender for my favourite King Crimson song. It has emotion. It has those big soaring orchestral elements to it. It's so poignant. It's actually based on, I think, a Rembrandt painting. By the way, Rembrandt, unlike Van Gogh, who is incredibly overrated, and I've been at that museum and it's not even that good. You're just ripping off the story and the narrative, and he's mad, and I would have been the one who'd understood him. You wouldn't. You'd have gone, get away from me, crazy bastard, and never seen any of his paintings. Rembrandt is underrated. Maybe not by Dutch people. If you go and see, he has those paintings that are fucking giant as well. They're unbelievable. His style is very, very special. I can see why it inspired this track. This is a fucking dope album. And this track here at the end, Fracture, becomes quite key for King Crimson because later they play off that in the sort of late 90s, 2000s projects era very many times and bring those melodies and aspects back in some of the later tracks they do. And so you need to be versed in it if you're going to really enjoy some King Crimson. I think I know where that's going. That's going straight into the A tier. And we'll rank them all as in which is most important left to right later. Then we are going to an album a lot of prog fans are going to know, along with In the Court of Kings and Crim, probably their most famous and Discipline. It is Red. Even if you don't like King Crimson, you probably like this album. It's one of, look, it's called one of the 50 heaviest albums of all time. Let me just check something a second. Oh no, it's still one of the classic groups. Wetton, Broford. Most famous, of course, for this track, One More Red Nightmare. An unbelievable prog track. So hard, so brutal. Then it's got Starless, a really beautiful track. Has sort of uplifting, inspirational elements to it. Also quite soulful. A little bit of wistful mourning built in there. Red is a great track. Fallen Angels, probably one that's forgotten. These, by the way, you don't skip tracks on this album. You just listen to all 5 in a row. You listen to the whole, 39 minutes of both sides. Remember, this is back in the day when they had LPs and he flipped it over in it. Spoiler, this is easy. Straight into the S tier. One of the best albums ever released in the prog rock genre. It is hard, it is proggy, the bass line is otherworldly, and the way it's recorded and the balance, it's so good. Easy to put it all the way up there. Then they have a break. All these albums in a row, they have a break. They come back in 1981 with Discipline. They bring in vocalist and guitarist Adrian Bellew. John Wetton's gone. Only Robert Fripp and Bill Bruford remain from before. Tony Levin, one of the people who was I always say, the people who made me buy a bass guitar were Tim Comerford from Rage Against the Machine. I can't even remember which Ramones did it, but I knew I could learn the Ramones tracks. And then Tony Levin. These are the people where I would listen to their music, and it was just the bass. I kept almost like a siren was calling to me. It's the one instrument I was focused on. And even to this day, the bass dominates how I listen to music. It's actually why I find the band Tool so interesting, because people actually do ignore that both of the bassists were fucking sick in that group. Just one was a really hard metal, grungier style, and one is the more proggy, technical style with sort of a little bit more of a technical, classical element to it. So you bring in Tony Levin, godlike bass player, and you bring out one of the best albums they ever did. Spoiler, this is going, you know where. Straight in the S tier. Elephant Talk, you're going to wonder why elephant. Just listen, it's a really clever way to introduce an aspect that sounds like an elephant. Doing like that. Frame by frame, great one. What's interesting, this has like an Indian influence into it at this point in time. Thela Hunjinji is basically some sort of like an Indian chant. It's a really catchy song. The song In Discipline is one of their best songs. It's one that, again, if you like things to be incredibly melodic, it'll be a little bit harder to get into. Some of it will sound like a little bit like noise, a little bit art rockish. But if you can get into it, it's fantastic. And I'll also just point out, this is the kind of a different era of the band, probably my favourite era of the band, even though I didn't put some of the other albums necessarily in the S tier. And this is actually a track, random detail, a lot of people won't remember, this is for really old school people. My friend, and by the way, a 2-time major winner in Counter-Strike 1.6, though before it was 1.6, Steel, Ognian Gurgaev, who was from Bulgaria and emigrated to Canada and won World Cyber Games 2001 gold medal with Legends Never Die. And then he won the CPL Winter 2002 with Team 3D. He was like the sixth man, but he wasn't really. Like, he would play Inferno and other maps, and then the guy Kane would play Dust 2. So, for example, Kane played in the final against Gol on Dust 2. Steel actually smurfed on Game Online in the upper bracket final on Inferno. So he is someone where he had a guy who was like a video director guy, and he was from Montreal, who made a Thrag movie, which was quite like it was kind of trying to be like poetic, but also have Thrags in it. I doubt you can even find it online now. We're not talking about Steel, Josh Nissan, the one from Source. We're not talking about Steel, the one from Brazil, if you even remember him from Immortals, etc. We're talking about Ogni and Gurgaev, and also came third at CPL 2003, if you're keeping track. That was it. The soundtrack to his Thrag movie was that track, Indiscipline. Because once you get to the guitar solo parts, you just transcend to another plane of prog. It is so special. This is a fucking amazing album. One of the all-time greats in the prog genre. I wish it was as known as Red and In the Court of the Kings and Crimson King. Let me think where we're going next. Right, this era, as I say, might be my favourite. Discipline into Beat into Three of a Perfect Pair. These are all really good albums. Now, Discipline is more hard prog and rock and a little bit of metal. Beat and Three of a Perfect Pair actually veer into... Wait there 1 second, actually. Just have a look at this a second. These basically, because it's in the early 80s and they're seeing in pop all these new wave bands and people doing poppy shit like the fucking Talking Heads and who else am I thinking of here? Talk and these sorts of groups that are out there, Duran, etc. Just like Rush, they got influenced and started trying to do that vibe themselves. By the way, another reason probably why is because then you get all the chicks that come to the gig and the live gig. Etc. This is still where people go out and watch live music. People aren't just all obsessed with TV, etc. And music costs a lot of money to get back then. You can't just watch it on the internet like you do now. So this era I just love. It really fits Adrian Belew's style. It does go away from Discipline more. So we're going to Beat next in 1982. I think a criminally underrated album by then. It's so good. This album, I think, is fucking really good. It's going to go straight probably into 8 here, I imagine. Because I think these first three in a row, Neil and Jack and Me, really great poppy rock song. Heartbeat is one that has like rare, actual, like really interesting lyrics and kind of has that vibe. Satori and Tangier, which is an instrumental, is haunting. It really is like something incredible. If you don't know, Satori is a sort of meditative state you can enter. And Tangier is obviously a North African place, isn't it? So this is like, it is exactly what you'd imagine if you were over there, like meditating and you were in the heat and you experienced higher consciousness. Just the opening three are baller. And then the album's pretty strong from there on out, quite frankly. Like I say, almost new wave inspired or influenced. Wait a minute, I didn't put Discipline in. Oh, that was going in here. What am I talking about? That went in S tier. I forgot to actually put the album in. That goes in S tier. So Beat goes straight into A. Really enjoyable album. Great balance between being poppy and rocky, but also having the prog element. Still having fantastic musicians is my favourite lineup and era of the band. Then we are going to go to the other one before we take a little a break for 11 years, which is going to be Three of a Perfect Pair. Another one that people sleep on. Maybe they just don't like that it's poppy, etc. I think this is a really special album too. It's not going to get into the S tier, but I think if you enjoy Beat, this album is almost a perfect companion. You are going to enjoy this album. Again, opening tracks, pretty good. Man with an Open Heart, Sleepless. There's some fun ones on this one. We're going to go straight to A tier for that. So we've got 4 in the S tier, we've got 3 in the A tier, we've got 3 albums left. Let's see where we go. Skip forwards 11 years. Thrack. Different era of the band. We have the double trio. So this is where you had Adrian Belew as a singer, you had Robert Fripp as a guitarist, Trey Gunn on the bass and stick and all that shit, and upright bass, Tony Levin on the bass and the Matchman stick, whatever that's called, Bill Bruford and Pat Marcelletto, the drummers. And it's the final album to feature Bruford and Levin, who I think were the two best at their roles. Although certainly John Wetton's incredible. I actually liked his vocals more in that era. I think Tony Levin's the better bass guitar player. This is one where already you've evolved again and changed as a group. This is an album where I would say it is really heavy. Put it this way, if you were a fan of something like Tool, You should probably check this out. If you like those latter-day Rush albums, like the early 2000s on ones, where they get this really heavy bass line and more like studio amped-up guitar music, heavier. This is so heavy and the bass is fucking dope. It's dope. It's so fucking sick, the bass in this. And it has those poppy elements, and Adrian Bellows doing his great singing job. Dinosaur, iconic song. People's a fun one. Vroom itself, Thrack. These are ones where the bass is going crazy and it's really hard. I think this is going to go, not into A, but you know what? It can go into B. It can join Larks, Tons and Aspic. It's certainly a good, borderline, very good album. Even though we're starting to move away from my favourite eras, which you can see was very early on, then the middle period, and now we're going to get into the latter period, where a lot of it was live albums and projects like that. Funny enough, called projects, but with this EK. We then take another break, 5 years, to the construction of light, spelt with a K like that. Brufford and Levin have gone, so you're just sticking with who you had before. Now it's just called the double duo lineup. It's actually not very successful in the US, this one. As you can see, there's revisiting of Larks, Tons and Aspic. Fractured is basically Fracture reworked. You're working with a lot of interesting material here. This is almost like a concept album because there's so many like melodies and refrains you're going back to and reprising. I do think, listen, this is never going to D. It's really hard. It's heavy in a very modern way. I think it has some very interesting bass work again. I think it's still really, really strong part of the album. It's a very, very technical album, which if you understand what I mean by that, it's way less poppy, way less melodic. But if you can get into even the first few tracks, you're going to like the whole album. But I've got to say, as a result, not one of my favourites. I think that will just go to B tier. Nothing's going to D, don't worry about that. And nothing's going to C. There's one album left. You can already probably guess where it's going. Because it's the last album, technically. It's 2003's Power to Believe, following up only a few years later. By the way, great art style they started using on all the singles, the EPs, the live albums, and this one here. Just this dope, bizarre, kind of a Plague Doctor-esque looking shit. They also did this nice EP along with this, by the way. Look at that artwork. You can see why people back in the day used to buy the vinyl albums to just look at the fucking artwork. Massive. I think this is a slightly better companion to The Construction of Light. It is almost too less at times when you hit some of the big tracks. One track, this one, Electric, even almost has sort of electronica elements on some of the drums, so it sounds drum programmed. I think you look at tracks like Facts of Life, Happy with What You Have to Be Happy With, what they actually made the EP into. These are some of the best tracks on the album. Certainly worth listening to if you enjoy King Crimson and prog rock music. We are going to put that into the B tier. Now all I will do is rank them left to right, best in each tier. So what is the best King Crimson album? Certainly, I'm tempted to keep it as in the Court of the Kings and Crimson King. I think Red is really special. It's hard. Part of me feels like it's Red, but also this is so classic an album. I'll keep, they can be joint first. Then when it comes to the others, I would put Discipline before In Poseidon's Wake. You come down to here, Beat is probably my favourite there. The fuck? Three of a Perfect Pair should be last. Starless and Bible Black can be in the middle. Again, funnily enough, different era. Then we come down to here. What was my favourite here, though? I think it might actually be this order. I think I would go Larks, Thorin and Aspic, Thrack. What was that one? Power to Believe, and then The Construction of Light. Now for my last one, this is correct. We're just going to go... Actually, how is that correct? Let me just think. Lizard and Islands. Which is the better album of Lizard and Islands? Circus already might win it. But in consistency, Islands might be better. I'll keep it there. I'll just keep it like this for now. I'll go Lizard first. I'm going to go Islands. I'm going to go Islands, then Lizard. So if you really wanted an order of my albums, it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That would be my order. one of the greatest musical acts of all time. They've been morphing, evolving as members come in. They change their style. They go all across rock, pop, metal. They're progressive. They have concept album elements. They bring in all sorts of different music, flutes, all sorts of special basses and guitars. They actually have electronic elements even later on. They are both classic, iconic, heavy, light, soulful, mournful, aggressive, dark. It's one of the best groups to ever do it in music. Without the noble families of the Italian city-states, you may never have heard of or been able to appreciate the art of some of the greatest Renaissance artists of all time. And similarly, my content on this channel, which I consider art, is kindly supported by Ibradiation and the rest of my Patreon supporters. Do you want to choose one of the topics that I might focus on next in a video? Maybe you want to ask me a question that I'll answer in a video AMA. Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming guests are for Thorin Curry. Maybe you want to take part in one of those private, never to be released, recorded for your benefit discussions with me one-on-one, where you can talk about almost any topic, assuming it's appropriate. Well, if any of those perks or others tickle your fancy, heed this call to action and join Thorin's side today at the Patreon link in the description box below.